Hi, Tantus Seraph and Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! It's time to get back into talking about the various anime series you might be watching and using them in your BESM games. So today I've got 4 more for you, 2 of the current season, of course, and 2 from last fall. So let's get into the 2 from this season. I've got Ange Vierge and, of course, the new Beserk series. Let's talk about Ange Vierge first. So Ange Vierge takes place in this world where Earth is one of 5 dimensions, and these 5 dimensions sort of coexist peacefully, but something is causing them to effectively crash together so they would all be destroyed. The beings that seem to be behind this are called Ouroboros and continually attack these worlds in order to weaken them. They're these special girls that have developed magical powers called Exceeds, and they themselves are called Progresses. So these Progresses join together, band together at this one island where they train, get better, improve themselves in order to fight against the Ouroboros. But they are not alone. There's also Alpha Drivers, another set of girls that have this ability that they can enhance a Progress's powers and sort of defend them against the Ouroboros. So they give them a defensive ability plus enhance some of their abilities. So the series takes place with them battling against the Ouroboros. Of course, it's not a huge distance into it. It's not done. We're over halfway done. Our main focus is, of course, on Saya, a girl from Earth who uses a sword and developed light-based powers. So let's talk about the genres. This is an adventure anime. It has very adventurous feel of going out, kind of doing little quests and missions and stuff. It's, of course, a fantasy. Some of the worlds are very fantasy-based. Like, all the worlds have their own themes. They almost seem very magical in and above itself, and some of them give very fantasy-based themes that you kind of understand. And that's what brings in our last one. It's a very magic-based anime. It's not like a magical girl one. It's not the traditional sort of transformation, but each of these girls happen to have magical powers. So it's almost like a subgenre or a higher genre, higher up on the list of genres than magical girl. Kind of interesting that way, that it's more just magical genre and there happen to be girls. So I rate this one a 4. It's a pretty good anime. I enjoyed it a lot. So let's talk about using it in a BESM game. So with this, I would give your characters 500 points. You could go a little lower than that. What you're doing is you're trying to judge where they would be in the power level of the anime for the group it is. Because the group starts out relatively low in the power tone, but they're still pretty powerful. So I would drop it at most down to 400 if you're dropping the power level a bit. Anyway, so what you're going to build is a team. You're going to try to have a team of people from the 5 different worlds. So you're going to have someone like Earth that might have magic abilities based around some of the mythology of Earth and things like that, or just sort of superpowers, and people based around the other 4 worlds. Anyway, you also will need an Alpha Driver. Whether this is a PC or an NPC is completely up to you. If it's a PC, it could work still out well. When the group goes into combat, the Alpha Driver is talking with them constantly and working with them at the time. So they are getting along at that moment. So it would work very well if you could have an Alpha Driver included in the PCs, or you could just have an NPC. And I would make sure to fill in the gaps in the group. Just make sure that your team also is diverse from the different worlds. As they've seen, that one Alpha Driver seems to have a team of people from each of the different dimensions. So your team would then go out and go on missions against the Ouroboros. They might compete amongst each other in order to build up some extra, the energy which keeps the dimensions from colliding into each other. They might have to compete with other various things going on, the sort of plot, maybe some dark ones that are corrupted, progresses, that sort of thing. You could compete with that sort of thing, or you could keep it very simple. So let's talk about the next one, Beserk. Now this is actually a sequel in a sense to the 90s series of Beserk. The thing is, the 90s series of Beserk takes place in the original books of the manga, the first couple of books. This one takes place after Guts has become the Black Swordsman. So the stuff in the early parts of the book is already gone. And giving you a loose bit of information that's not going to spoil a lot, Guts was a sort of mercenary on his own. He joined a mercenary band. He traveled with them for a while. They gained status, fame in military actions. Eventually they are betrayed, and the band is slaughtered. They are slaughtered. Most of them are killed. Very few survive. And Guts gets cursed effectively, that dark spirits and effectively demon things hunt him down and want to basically devour. He also lost an arm and an eye, and so he's, not the best shape. And we're taking place that is after he's been wandering for a number of years, almost on this revenge trip against the demonic forces, which effectively slaughtered and devoured his allies. That's when we're kind of moving into him beginning to come back to almost the world and beginning to band together with some people that will be allies to him on his quest to eventually maybe remove the curse. Possibly get revenge still, but curse getting removed is pretty high on his list. So this is a dark fantasy. It is again a fantasy world. It's got demons, spirits, things like that, but it's got very dark, dirty overtones that none of the nice, like, happy, light fantasy. It's all very cruel, wicked things, like magic users or witches, which can be burnt at the stake, things like that. It's also horror. People die a lot in the series, and they die really horribly. There's a lot of, like, monsters that they eat people, and they really do, and they've done some horrible things. They do find some pretty bad stuff. I would also call it an action, though. When Guts gets started, he is awesome. He swings one of the most ridiculous weapons that basically only he could use. It's a weapon that's made to take out cavalry, and he uses it on just people. Now, I rate this one a 5. It's a really great series, and I would recommend it. You can see the original if you want, but it's not, you don't necessarily need to see the original. They do hint at some of the stuff from the original series throughout it that you can pick up what kind of happened, and some of the bad things that occurred. Again, it's not necessarily recommended. I would say it wouldn't be bad to watch the original series. So let's talk about using it in a BESM game. If you're going to use it in a BESM game, I would recommend 250 to 300 points. You're going to be pretty elite soldier type people, or maybe have some mild powers if you're doing something with witchcraft. Make a team around a character like Guts. You're going to have someone that most likely survived the Band of the Hawk, got cursed, he's got like the mark on him that's attracting all these monsters, and build a team around that of people that are going to journey with him or her in order to remove said curse. Again, vengeance could be on the line, and you could fill in the blanks along the way. You could mimic the overall plot of the manga and stuff, which is actually not finished, so it's continuing. So you can actually see where they are at now and mimic it a little bit. They did do, again, like the beginning of it was a very big backstory. And you can even focus on that backstory part where you're the Band of the Hawk getting to that point where things go shitty. That could be the ultimate end for your team of people. You know, sucks to be them, but you could. That's kind of why I recommend going after then, sort of skipping that point in time, because we know in the storyline things go really shitty. So getting together a team that's sort of recovering from that, or bringing your cursed character to a better point, would be interesting. So next up is, of course, series from last fall, 2015. I'm going to talk about the Garo series. Now, the Garo series is a lot of them. I'm talking about the 2 anime series in particular, Guren no Suki and Hono no Kokuin. These were the 2 anime series set in the Garo sort of universe. The thing is, Garo is a lot of material. There's been video games, live action series, movies, animated movies, and the 2 anime series. I'm going to sort of focus on the main anime series, but I'm going to give you general information on the world. In this world, there are these monsters called horror. There's these dark, demonic creatures of corruption that could be created on their own or created out of the debased feelings of people. Their little spirits might prey on people, converting them into the true horrors that they would become. And they kind of kill and maim and devour people. And of course, people can't do a lot about it. That's where the Makai Knights come in. The Makai Knights are these people that are trained to fight horrors, that can summon special armor and weapons in order to fight them, that they then battle against the horrors. Of course, they are aided by Makai alchemists, who are effectively wizards or spellcasters, or, you know, users of spells and concoctions and things like that assist Makai Knights. Now, as I said, there's 2 TV series here. There's one set in a more medieval setting, kind of seemingly like medieval Spain, and another set in a feudalistic Japan. Both the settings focus around this golden lion armor that the user at the time has. The Makai Knight that we're focusing around has, and there are other Makai Knights in there that have their other armors too, but that's the main focus. And both series are very interesting. They're very good series. They have interesting storylines and interesting results to them. Now, this one I would call an action. There's battle scenes, fighting, they're fighting horrors, battling it out. It's also a fantasy. There's magic, monsters, sort of this mythology to it, special powers. They summon their armors. But I kind of call it a horror too, because the horrors themselves do some pretty gruesome and bad things before they're stopped very often. A lot of people get killed in this one too. It has a similar theme to Beserk, I would say, except probably less dark. This one just doesn't have the same darkness to it, but it's got the same kind of death to it, I would say. Now let's talk about using it in your BESM game. I would give your characters 400 points. That'll give them either if they're using a Makai Knight, it would give them that they could design their armor and weapons amongst giving their normal training and stuff as a character. If they're being a Makai Alchemist, it would give them all the access to the spells and special abilities they may have. And you make a team of people that are going to go deal with horror. So they might deal with corrupted individuals. If a Makai Knight falls, either to a horror or a Makai Alchemist sort of becomes corrupted, they might deal with them. You can make a lot of storylines around that, and you can choose whatever period and location you want. You could do that. You could choose that you're in more of a modern day, in blah country, or blah location, or you can go as far back into the past as you want. I would say keep it as general or focused as you want. The skill selection I have given is for doing one of the more historical ones. That means going back in the past. But if you wanted to, you could choose a more modern setting, and I would recommend altering the skills accordingly and choosing them according to whatever setting you determine you want to put the game into. So the last one I'm going to talk about is Seraph of the End. Technically, this was the second season. There were 2 seasons. This is taking place in a world that around 2012, a horrible virus came out and effectively killed most of the human population, that anybody of 13 or under seemingly survived. Now, not everybody does. But the vampires and sort of monsters of the world take this opportunity to emerge from the underground and take over. So vampires effectively conquered. They gather up all the remaining humans and basically put them under their thumb. We meet a couple of orphans, Yushiro and Mikain, who have this other group of orphans that are sort of under their care. They've already been orphaned previously, so they have been establishing themselves on their own. They were taken in by the vampires. They decide things aren't good here. They're worse than they were on their own, so they decide to try to escape. All the other orphans except for Yoshiro die. He gets saved by Mikain sacrificing himself. And then we skip ahead some years into the future where now Yoshiro has been saved by the actual remnants of humanity who are fighting back against the tyranny of the vampires. And he joins their military, the Demon Corps, the demon troops, in order to slaughter vampires and fight against them. He makes a deal with sort of a demonic weapon, and he gets into this military training and into the battle site. And so our series moves on from there. So this again is another action. There's fights with vampires, fights with the monsters that are patrolling the world, attempts to save people. It is again another dark fantasy. It is set in this world and seemingly in the future, but there are vampires and monsters and special abilities and demons. There are like demonic powers that people are using demonic weapons. It's also apocalyptic because it's taking place in our future to a degree. It's supposed to be around this time / in the future, but it's an apocalyptic wasteland. It's like a disease wiped out everybody, bringing in the sort of vampire apocalypse with fantasy. So I rate this a 4, meaning that the only one out of these I didn't rate a 4 was Beserk, which I rated a 5. So the rest of them, 4s. Now let's talk about using this one in your BESM game. So you're going to have 300 points, and you're going to focus around being part of the demon troop. You're going to be someone that's using a demonic weapon, that you're going to be bonded with it. You're going to go fighting missions where you're fighting vampires and monsters. The missions could be very simple. They could be very long missions, sort of like when they were going against the nobles. Bringing into the plot of the show as much as you want is a good choice. You can bring in stuff with the Seraph of the End. You don't need to. You can bring in stuff with the politics of both the human and the vampire forces, that maybe there's politicking on both ends which are affecting your job as a soldier. But how much you're bringing that in is completely up to you. You can keep it very simple, that they're just going out on simple missions, fighting vampires, fighting monsters that are each very interesting and unique on their own. You can go on longer missions. You can sort of mix and match those things and not bring in any large plot from the anime. It's completely up to you. So that's it for today. I went over these 4 anime. I talked a little bit about them, gave some basic information about them. Then I moved into talking about using them in your BESM game. So if you have questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows your support for the channel, for the Empire, and the work I do. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.